Okay, so assuming you already have a Gmail account and Google Analytics, just enter optimize.google. You approved you approve all the terms and conditions, set the country in which you're located. In my case is Israel at the moment. Agree to all the terms and conditions, and then you pretty much have your first Google Optimize account running. Now you have to create your first experience. Experience is basically experiment. It's basically the split test. So you're going to give it a name. Usually you should choose a descriptive name with the date. Um, Here is an example for product page test, and then you're going to put in the base link. This is the original links that you want to test. H0, your hypothesis. So in this case, it's going to be your store product page, and then you can choose which type of test you want. So just a quick overview about the different type of tests. So first is the A/B test. A/B test is also sometimes called the split test or ABN test. It depends on how many variants you're going to test. So it's basically a randomized experiment using two or more variants of the same web page, your original web page and your new web page. Variant A is the original, and variant B through N, if you have two, three, or four variants, contains one or more elements that are modified from the original. For example, a different colored call to action, or a quote instead of a headline, or a different video testimonial in your product page. And in some experiments, variant B may be completely different version of the web page, of the original web page. By the way, you've heard me saying before H0 and H1, because H0 is basically your current page, and H0 is your hypothesis. You have an hypothesis in which you believe is that the new product page or the new element or the new version of the page might outperform H0. So this is why you're checking whether the new page is performing better than the original page. So each variant is served at similar times so that its performance can be observed and measured independent of external factors. You can also limit your experiment to a specific audience with targeting. So for example, let's say you added a pop-up page, an exit intent pop-up, so you can limit the test to only run in desktop versions, because I don't like throwing pop-ups in mobile version, because when you put an exit intent pop-up in mobile, it kills the conversion. So you can segment the specific audience that you would like to run the A/B test. So for example, you can do the A/B test only for US visitors or only mobile visitors or whatever. You can segment any way you want. And Optimize is going to capture the performance data for each variant against an objective and identifies the leader. So at the end of the day, you're going to know whether the original version, the original variant performed better than the second variant or not. The other type of test, which is kind of similar, is the redirect test. It is also called a split test URL. It's basically you're going to duplicate the original version of the page, or you can create a completely new version of the product page or whatever you want to test. And 50% or the amount of people you decide are going to be redirected to the new page. So for example, what I usually do, I take a product page from my Shopify or WooCommerce store, I duplicate it, I call the new page, as you can see here, they give an example, www.example.com landing 1, and I call the new product page landing 2, and then I send 50% of the traffic to the new product page, and I'm also going to get data from Google Analytics and Google Optimize regarding which page performed better in regards to my KPIs, AOV, which page had better conversion rates to add to cart, better conversion rates to sale, etc. And the last test, which I'm going to talk about, even though I don't use it too often, and this is only when you're driving significant amounts of traffic, is the multivariate test, which tests many variants an element simultaneously to see which combination creates the best outcome. So instead of showing which page variant is most effective, the MVT identifies the most effective variant of which element, as well as analyzing the interactions between those elements. So for example, let's say you have 3 different headlines, 4 different quotes, and 2 different videos, testimonial videos in your product pages. So the MVT is also going to tell you which elements work best together. So for example, if you have 2 headlines, 2 testimonials, and 2 videos, you're going to have 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, so it's going to be 8 different versions. And the MVT test is going to tell you which version outperformed the rest. Because let's say you have 1 testimonial and 1 headline and a different quote, maybe the first quote is performing better, but in conjunction to the new testimonial, it doesn't perform as well, because in a product page or in a sales funnel, every data is dependent on the other data. So even if one headline is, generally speaking, performing better, if it doesn't work well with the specific testimonial or the specific video, it might bring lower conversion rates. So the MVT is a very smart way to test multiple elements in your product page, but you're going to have statistical significance only if you have a lot of traffic. Here's a similar example. You can test 2 headlines, 3 hero images, which would produce 2 sections, headline and the images, with 3 or 2 variant for a total of 6 combinations. The number of variants multiplied by each other, 3 multiplied by 2. So this is a quick explanation regarding the most common ways to split test in Google Optimize. In the Google documentation, you can also find a great resource of ideas of what you can optimize. So you can optimize different type of pages. You may optimize the category page, the car page, the thank you page, contact form, checkout. By the way, the checkout is going to be, if you want to test the checkout in Shopify, it will be kind of difficult. You can't really do split test in the Shopify checkout, but if you're running a WooCommerce store, which is what I suggest that you do, so you can test anything, any page. You can test different type of forms, different quantity of fields, less, more. If you want to put required fields in the form, 1 page versus multi-page, you can test different type of buttons, size, color, copy, the placement of the buttons. You can test videos, the thumbnail image, the title. You want to do autoplay versus click to play, auto sound versus click to hear. You can test different trust elements. You can test the copy, the length of the copy, the format, the voice, images, colors, a lot of stuff. You can basically test anything. Obviously, you need to focus on the most important things. What I suggest doing is split testing based on elements that you think that will make a big difference. A good way to know this is by seeing different screen recordings and heat maps, or even asking your customers after they checked out, or if they abandoned the cart, asking them why they didn't. If they abandoned the cart, you can ask them why did they abandon the cart, and if they already bought, you can ask them in a quick survey after the sale what almost prevented them from buying. And based on this, you know what you can optimize and improve in your product page or in your sales funnel. Okay, now let's go back to Google Optimize. So here I chose the redirect test. Now you need to define the variant, which is the new duplicated test, which you want to send 50% of the traffic to. So you normally write H1, so I know it's the new hypothesis. I'm going to write the date, and I'm going to write the test name, and maybe also a description to this specific variant. Next, you'll have to create tell Google Optimize exactly the new link of the new page. So in this case, it's going to be yourstore.com/product page v2, and then basically you're almost good to go. The next step would be writing a short description. Might not seem meaningful at the moment, but if you go back in 6 months time or 1 year and check out all the tests because you want to see references to a new store or different type of verticals or anything or something like that, it's good to have a description so you know exactly what did you test. And then obviously in this case, because it's a new account, you'll have to also connect to Google Analytics. I'm not going to do this, but it's pretty straightforward and easy. Then you're going to set the objective, which is most likely going to be a revenue or conversion rate. And then you can tell Google what percentage of the traffic that is being sent to the original page you want to be allocated for the test. Most likely you're going to leave it at 100%, and then you just start the experiment. The experiment is going to start running, and you can see the results and all the traffic in the Google Analytics, in your Google Analytics. Here's an example of one of the tests that I used to do, that I did in one of my stores. This is dashboard in Google Analytics. You go to the experiments under the behavior tab, and then you can see a breakdown of the variants. As you can see here, the original variant and the new type of guarantee. I tested both, and you can see the difference in the conversion rates and the per session value. Obviously, you can also create sub-segments in the test. You can test how this experiment affected only mobile traffic or only desktop traffic. You can test different goals to see if the add to cart, what were the changes in the add to cart, or different metrics that you think that are important for your store or your whatever you're doing for your KPIs. In this case, as you can see, it was conversion rate and per session value, which was what I was interested in. And then you can also go back to Google Optimize, and also Google Optimize is going to tell you, based on the results, what is the likelihood of one variant being better. And if you see there is a big statistical significance and one variant is better than the other one, you can stop the test and start driving traffic 100% only to the page that performed better. Obviously, after you have a page that is underperforming, you need to stop using it. And if you want, and I suggest you do so, you start split testing the new page. The winner, you just take the winner, you define it as the original page, and from now on you're going to make different split tests and iterations on the basis of the new original page. Okay guys, so to summarize, split testing is a very powerful tool. It is many times overlooked because not too many people, especially beginners, talk about it because they think it's more complicated than it actually is. Split testing methodically and on a consistent basis can be the difference between a losing operation to a very profitable one. 0.5% improvement in your conversion rate can mean a lot more money on a daily basis. So this is definitely something that you should try. You can use Google Optimize. All you have to do is copy some code from the Google Optimize into your website header and Google Analytics in order to split test. Google Optimize is free. Google Analytics is free, and there is no reason you shouldn't be A/B testing and split testing in your store at the moment. Obviously, if you don't have a lot of traffic that you drive on a daily basis and you don't have too many conversions, you should reconsider starting split testing. But if you already have traffic and you're already seeing conversions, you should definitely try to optimize and try to get as much as try to lift your AOV and conversion rates as high as possible. I hope this video was useful for you guys. If you like the video, please comment, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, leave them in the comment section or DM me or the team in our Facebook pages.